Okay.
Hello. Oh, we're ready. We're going. Yeah, we are ready. See, Jess is just ready to get on talking. But welcome. My name is Vanessa Ortali. I am the founder of the Ladies Community and Heart and Mind Talks. And today on our summit, the one with self, one with purpose, one with others, I have Jessica Shakir. Jessica is a beauty coach and also celebrity makeup artist, and we met at an event not too long ago, maybe, oh, I guess it'd be 7-8 months ago, and she was so open and vulnerable about her story, and I wanted to bring her on today to share her story, what she's been through, and she's also so open and loving about her faith. And whatever your faith is, I don't care. I don't want this discussion to make you feel like you have to have a certain belief system. What this conversation is meant to do is open your heart and connect faith, belief, and prayer to whatever you want to help add value and meaning and purpose to your life. So if you're open to that conversation and you want to go there, I can't wait. Dive in with me and Jess. Jessica Shakir, welcome. Thank you for spending the time with me over the next 30 to 40 minutes to chat about you and everything that you have to offer.
Well, it's a huge honor. And thank you for just thinking of me and inviting me into this really sacred place. And I remember, yeah, we were in line for coffee at an event, and I turned around and I think I said, I love your shirt. So that's how it all started.
It
And
did.
lo and behold, here we are in this interview. So I'm really honored to be here, Vanessa. Thank you.
Thank you. And so, I mean, I'm sure celebrity makeup artists, everyone always thinks, oh my gosh, that's so glamorous. Tell us a little bit about what your life was like as a celebrity makeup artist and how you lived when you were doing that.
Mhm. It can be glamorous, and a big chunk of it is, and then a big chunk of it is not glamorous, and I'd be on my hands and feet putting body makeup on top of a foot, try not to get makeup in a heel, like getting ready for a red carpet. And so I've been doing hair and makeup for 22 years, going on 23. I just had a birthday, and I have not gotten to the point where I'm bored of it, where I'm tired of it, where I'm over it. And so for that, I'm like, wow, thank you, God, that I found something that I loved early on. And I've just been able to chase that, to grow that, to feed my curiosity, to feed my passion, and to feed, my mind in regards to showing up in an excellent way with my work, with the people I work with. And so 22 years of doing makeup, I mean, 2 years in, I met a celebrity photographer, and at 18 years old, I had been doing makeup for 2 years. Yeah, I started when I was 16. And I remember I got my first magazine cover at 18 years old. Like, I was so nervous. I still remember going into that day and going through my kit, making sure I got everything. And so it was just a passion that I recognized was in my heart from I was 12, knowing that I want to do makeup one day. And so I never stopped. I never stopped feeding that. I never stopped moving in that direction. The momentum just kept going and going. And I would say for the past 10 years, I've been working a lot with celebrities and television and red carpet and special appearances. And so with that, you mentioned the glamorous life. Sure, with that, it did come with perks. I lived in New York for 3 years, New York City, and I had my dream job at the time. It was my dream job. I was doing or doing makeup for the host of a show on VH1 called Big Morning Buzz Live, and we were in the old TRL. Is it TRL with
I think so. I think so.
dating or something? So we were in that television studio with glass windows from floor to ceiling overlooking Times Square. And so that was my life. And we did live TV. I met so many celebrities that would come through those doors and be a part of our show. And I did that for a couple of years. And so, yeah, there'd be times where we'd have a car pick us up from the VH1 television studio. We'd jet to the airport. We'd fly to LA for the Grammys. We'd do the Grammys. We'd fly back and go straight to live TV. And I would be doing makeup for the host in the car, in the cab from the airport to the studio, and she would be steadying my hand as I did her eyeliner in the back of the cab at 5 in the morning. So it was a lot of it was a lot of movement. It was a lot of me burning the candle at both ends, which I have a lot to say about that now, and in 2020, looking back at my life. But I lived my life to the fullest. That's my heart to do so. I never want to look back on a season and wish I appreciated it more while I had it. I never want to miss the opportunity to be grateful for what I have while I have it. And I'll tell you, Vanessa, I really feel conditioning my mind to be that way has helped colored my whole life. And it's helped me stay focused and stay in alignment with who God has called me to be, who I want to be. It's helped me show up the way I will be proud to show up, and we have this magnificent machine, this brilliant brain, this mind that controls our brain, and we're able to think about what we think about, and we're able to take a step back and ask ourselves, how do I want to show up in this room? And then we get to do that. So it's really it's wonderful. I've loved my career. It's still going. I've had to take a break, and I know we'll get into that. Last year was a difficult year, and I'm thankful for it all. And I I'm thankful for it. And now I'm resting. This is a season of just calming down, resting, and being okay with my life and my career looking different now.
Let's share a little bit about what this past year has been like for you.
Yes. So the visual I get for 2019 is this big wrecking ball. Thank you, Miley Cyrus. No, but it's a wrecking ball kind of year in that everything was just cleared to ground level so that I can build up again. And not just me, as you mentioned, faith is a huge part of who I am and how I do life. And so I love Jesus. I love the Word of God. I love people. And our gloriously common calling is to love God and to love people. It can be as simple as that. And then how to find out how you uniquely live that out, that's really cool. And I know it could be hard. I know it could be difficult, but we I'm called to love God and to love people. And so that's my heart. I remember, decades ago when I would just find myself super frustrated with people or whatnot, even, thinking back to life in New York when I lived or worked in Times Square, having to push through thousands of people to and from work. And so I repeated this prayer over and over: God, grow my love for humanity. Please, I need help. And so I loved what I did. I loved being able to serve people. I love being able to serve particularly women, although a lot of the people I work with, a lot of the celebrities are men. And I love doing grooming as well. But 2019 was a wrecking ball of a year. And it's wild because at the beginning of 2019, my word for the year, my husband and I both came up with the same word individually. And when we came together in a conversation asking, okay, what do you think God put on your heart for a word? We both had the same word. In the beginning of 2019, our word was success. And it did not go as, but now that we're in 2020 and I could look back, and I'm just so thankful I can say, oh, last year, that just helps my mind. I look back and I realize, wow, God allowed things to happen. Things happened. And Romans 8:28, I love, because it essentially says God can and will turn around things that were meant for harm for good. He can turn it around for good. And so I'm committed to that mindset. My God who loves me so much, he can turn anything around for good, for his glory and for my good. So looking back, I can see how 2019 was a success. But 2 weeks into the year, I had a neck injury. And I thought it would just be like a 2-week thing because I've had scoliosis all my life. I've had vertebrae slip out of alignment. I've been, in bed for 2 weeks because I'm waiting for my neck to realign and to heal. And so I thought it was just something like that. It was much more involved and it was much more intricate. And two of my discs bulged and there was a tear in one of the discs. So it was almost a herniated disc. And one of the bulges were pressing into my spinal sac, which surrounded your spinal cord. And the overview of what happened, Vanessa, is that that happened in my neck. And what it felt like in my mind's eye was that it set off just a slew of other things, all the inflammation that filled my body. I felt like the degenerative disc issue, which I have all throughout my spine, was magnified, and pain was really severe. Pain was like high levels of pain were, and I'm sure most everyone can relate to this, that kind of physical pain where you don't even try to cry, but tears are dripping down your cheeks because you can't take the pressure in your head. And it was in my neck and it was all through my spine. And so essentially, I was temporarily disabled for 5 months out of 2019. I was on bed rest for almost 4 months out of those five. And so here I was starting the year off with success, and I had my whole calendar filled. My husband and I were living in New York at the time, and I was doing the bi-coastal thing because I have television shows that I do hair and makeup for in LA. And so I thought I could do it. Sure. I've done that all throughout my 20s, that bi-coastal thing. Sign me up. But I just turned 39. So my spine is like, oh, you're not 24 anymore. You're not even 29 anymore. And it was my first work trip from New York to California. And it was only meant to be a 10-day work trip. And it ended up being a permanent move back to California because I couldn't drive myself, much less fly. And I couldn't live in New York like that. And so I am still recovering from this injury, and I am still in full-time physical therapy. And what what I what I know is that my value, my worth, and my beauty doesn't come from what I accomplish, and it doesn't come from what I produce, and it doesn't, yes, I'm a creative being, but it doesn't come from what I'm doing and how I'm producing, and the work that I do. And side note, my heart was to do all this work for the glory of God and for the good for other people. So there wasn't a wrong intention behind it, but I just totally skipped over the fourth commandment where it's like, keep the Sabbath, keep the Sabbath. And now I know, hey, that isn't God trying to ruin our fun. That's God giving us a day off because he knows how he created our body, and he knows that our bodies can't go 7 days a week, 39 years without ramifications of forgetting to rest. And so I know I opened up a lot of conversations here, but the year was a wrecking ball of a year. I had all the time in the world to do deep therapy with God, to have alone time. There were times though, Vanessa, I couldn't even pick up a book because I couldn't dip my neck down. I couldn't tip it up. 21 days went by without washing my hair. I did shower, but I couldn't dip my head back because I was nursing this neck injury. And I had a lot of therapy time. And so I grew so much. And the first book of the whole year that I read was Driven by Eternity. And that's how I want to live my life. I want to live my life driven by eternity, because I know, like, whatever you believe, we all have it. And that's what I know, is that we have eternity set in our hearts. We might not be able to figure it out with our minds, but every person that I've ever talked to, even when I get into a conversation with the atheist, there's something pulling us. We know there's something more than just here and now. We might not be able to put a label on it or think, to be able to describe it or comprehend it with our brain. And there's a scripture that says God has put eternity in the hearts of all men, but we can feel it. Even though we can't think it out and describe it, we can feel it. And so I want to live my life driven by eternity. I want to do things now that'll matter 10 million years from now, because I believe if there is an eternity, there will be a 10 million years from now. That's like mind blowing, right? And so this book that I read, Driven by Eternity by John Bevere, it started out, lo and behold, with a quote on success. And I go, that was my word for the year. And now I'm in a neck brace. And now I have to, take a step back from my career. And I didn't know how long that would be. And so what I learned through this book was diving into scripture again and looking at the stories that we get to read in scripture. And what I learned is simply this: success to God is obedience and not accomplishment. So I'm like, whoa, okay, obedience. What, I want to obey you, but the one major way I wasn't obeying was just resting my body. Just simple. I wasn't doing that. And so I went
With
through.
that definition, you did accomplish success in 2019. It just wasn't the kind of success that you had envisioned from your own knowledge.
Because our definition, we thought, okay, well, if God is going to give us that word, we got to come up with a definition together. And so the definition went something like this: we don't want to stand in God's way as he tries to use us, work through us, speak through us. And we want to accomplish everything he has put in our hearts to do. But again, it was the doing. So I would sum it up. I believe my biggest lesson of 2019 was coming back to the basics and learning how to be, not just do, just coming back to being and not doing. We've heard this before. It's worth the mention again. We're human beings, not human doings. And so I had to get to the point where that went from head knowledge to, I felt it in my heart. I felt it in my soul, my gut. And so I thought, do I really believe that I'm valuable just because I'm here? Just because I'm a human being, just because I have breath in my lungs? Do I really feel I'm valuable without all the accomplishments? Actually, my calendar would suggest differently. And so I feel that God had to get me to a place where I I felt aligned, and I felt authentic, and I felt fully alive even while I was bedridden, because I know that being loved by God, being loved, being made in the image of love, being made in the image of creation, creativity, being made in the image of beauty, that I am those things. Those things are my birthright. So I don't have to hold on tight to those. I can let my hands open up, and I don't have to worry about anybody taking that away from me, because it's my identity. And so that was my huge lesson for 2019. And in that, yes, I feel very successful. What I wanted to use the word what I accomplished. And yes, what I accomplished, because I feel super secure and confident. There's so much joy and peace around just being me. And that's what I want to help other women step into.
How can people start to get there? Because in Western culture, and I was just having this conversation last week with my boyfriend, is our value being tied to our accomplishments and what we do and what other people think about us and what we can experience. How, as a Western culture, can we step out of that? And what are things that we can do to bring our value back to just our worth being, because we are human beings?
Yeah, I love that question. And I've already mentioned it, but I'll dive into it right now. Simply put, having the margin, creating margin in our lives so that we can rest our mind, so that we can rest our intellect, our emotions, our will, our body, our hearts, that we just need that sacred place to rest. And my Jewish friends, I love talking to them about this, because they've been able to integrate this way of life into their everyday life. And it isn't so hard for them anymore. They've automated this. Now, for me, even having the heart to rest, it's still very hard for me to do that. And if I'm being honest, even when I do have a day off from work and I book it out and I say, this is my Sabbath, this is my day to rest my body, this is my day to just look up at you, God, and see what you have already done, not what I need to do. That replenishes everything about me, everything of who I am, all the layers of me. But if I'm being honest, it's very hard in those days off not to strategize about work, not to dream about work, not to create a new project or create a new thing. And so that's been the hardest element of taking a true Sabbath. Hey, let me teach my mind to take a day off. That's very hard. It'll feel like herding cats at the beginning, because you're like, oh, and this and that, and oh, and these two things. But I really feel doing that and conditioning my mind in this new way, creating this new habit, this new way of life, has helped me meditate more clearly has helped me see life for what it is. I often tell myself one of the practical ways that you could feed your soul, one of the practical ways to implement soul care is to tell yourself the truth. And it sounds so simple, but oftentimes I'll have to say these things out loud. Okay, I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling nervous about something. I'm feeling like I have too much to do in a week. I can't get it all done. What is the truth in this situation? What is the truth? And not just my truth, which is really another way of saying my opinion nowadays, but what is the truth of the matter? And so I always start with the truth with a capital T that doesn't change. And so the word of God is the only thing that doesn't change. Culture will change, opinions will change, trends will change. And so if I'm basing my life on all those things, when they change, I might feel like, ooh, okay, I'm stable ground underneath my feet. But if I can base my life and my identity on something that does not change, then I can be secure even when culture changes, even when I have a neck injury that changes my whole year, even when fill in the blank. And so allowing ourselves to have that margin, to have that downtime, to have that rest is one of the most important things, along with telling yourself the truth. And so what that might look like practically is, again, if I'm stressed out about something, I'm like, okay, Jess, what is the truth in this situation? What is it? Okay, the truth is I'm valuable just because I'm here. God made me and I reflect his beauty and I get to reflect his beauty. Also, I've been running around burning the candle at both ends. That's the honest truth. And I know how I'm supposed to take care of my body, and I'm not doing that. So let me get back to the basic. Let me rest for an hour. Let me rest today. And let me reset my mind and my emotions and give them time to, just give them time to replenish. We know that when we sleep, our organs, our body heals itself. There's a lot of healing that happens when we sleep. And the same thing with our soul, our mind, our will, our emotions, how we think, how we feel, how we choose. Those need rest to heal. And so tell yourself the truth. It's something I say out loud all the time. And, because sometimes we can make up these stories and we have these narratives that aren't true, that aren't in alignment with what's true. And so that's something I say to myself all the time. I hope that encourages you. Take that, try it out, and see how it encourages you too.
Yeah, that's awesome. The thing I love about these interviews is one with self can be interpreted in so many different ways. And why I wanted to chat with you today is, how does your faith help you connect with self? And I think you're describing that so nicely. What, when you were going through all of that, in 2019 with your scoliosis, and even in the past, did you ever question your faith and the tools that you knew in order to bring you in connection with yourself and others?
Did I ever question my faith?
Mhm.
So the the honest answer is no, but I feel that's a cop out. So I never questioned my faith, but I examined it really well. I examined other ideologies, other beliefs, other faiths, and also I just want to know how to connect with people. There was a time when I moved into a different country. I moved to Japan when I was 21. And I remember having this conversation with myself going, "Oh, you thought you've built this strong identity and your faith and God, and you feel like you're a confident person now, but what happens when you move to a different country? Nobody knows you, your family isn't there, nobody knows your backstory, so you get to be however you want to be. Am I going to turn into some reckless, like, wild child?" So I had those thoughts, and I go, well, that isn't my goal. I love my life. I love who I am. I love the Lord. And so when I went to Japan, I realized my love for him was more authentic than I really even thought, because I realized it is mine. It isn't something I was just born into. This is me. This is for me. My relationship with God is a personal one. And so I began to just find more joy in it. And so it was a test. I feel that you can look at that. It was a test where, yeah, we have free will. I could have gone the reckless way. And I could have just dropped everything, but naturally my heart just so enjoy the intimacy I have with God and the peace and joy I have in connection with Him that I just ran even faster in that direction. But I do want to back it up by saying when I was 5, my daddy passed away and it was sudden. My mom was left with 4 children as a widow in her early 30s. And I remember, actually, it was around 4 years old, but I remember being a toddler, having just lost my dad. And I remember walking outside and looking up to the sky and saying, God, you took my daddy. I need you to be my daddy now. And I don't know how a toddler had even the mind to think those things. I just thank God for it. But I remember what it's like to be rescued by heaven at a young age. And since then, I've walked this whole life with the warmth of heaven on my skin. And so I know too well what it feels like to be rescued. And in many ways, that was just the first time that, and anytime the temptation to turn my back, the temptation to question it, like, this can't be real. This is too good to be true. It was like, no, I know how it feels to be rescued by God. Nobody else did that for me. The world can't even offer that. And so I really believe that heartache at such a young age led me to be so connected to heaven and so connected to the Lord. And it's only grown. So if that answers your question, yeah, there were times when oh gosh, there were times when I questioned, am I doing this right? Do I have enough faith? And then it always goes back to, I need to focus on who He is. My prayers need to be heaven down prayers rather than earth up prayers. With earth up prayers, your prayers can be filled with angst, and you look around and if you look for trouble, you'll find it. If you look for evil, you'll find it. And so earth up prayers can be like, oh my gosh, oh, that's so sad. That broke my heart. Why? And then you pray for remedy or you pray for relief. And we need that, and that's good. But also heaven down prayers are, God, you were good. You love me. You made me in your image. You called me your own. That brings heaven to me, and that brings peace over my soul and over my heart. And so I've had this beautiful journey of faith all my life, and it really started getting real about that 4 or 5 year old mark when my daddy disappeared from my life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. How do you think that your faith connects you deeper with yourself and others? You've
Yeah.
talked about it a little bit, but I'd love to go a little bit further into that.
Gosh, that has everything to do with that. Relationships, I love the definition of relationships. I mean, in short, it's the art of connecting, how you connect. And so if we think, I like to switch out words too, switch out words that are kind of all too common, like relationships with connection, and words like, if I ever feel that I'm so far away from my dream, or in the past, I felt so far away from who I want to be. And initially I thought, oh, I have so far to go. It's so much work. But I switched it to, I get to do this and I am becoming me. So instead of the word waiting, I replace it with, I'm becoming somebody really amazing. And so relationships are about connecting. And I have found that if I have trouble connecting in with my horizontal relationships with the people around me, I could definitely look back and trace it back with an issue connecting with my own self. And then I could always connect that with a issue of connection to God. And so what I have lived, I always want to make sure that my connection with God is pure and it's honest, it's authentic. And by the way, authentic, I love this word. I know we all use it a lot. It isn't just, you're going to know how I feel. I wear my heart on my sleeve. But authentic is also meaning based on facts, based on reality. It's truthful. And so a lot of times we go through life feeling what we feel and claiming, oh, this is my truth, but it's not truth. It's just how you feel. And we all know that feelings, hey, they're great indicators. They're horrible dictators. They're meant to be led, not to follow our feelings. They're meant to, again, this beautiful machine, our mind, our brain, we can, attach a definition to the emotions that jump out at us and the feelings that we feel. And so I want to make sure that my line of communication with heaven is authentic and it's pure. And so for me, I know I can't just rely on my feelings for that. I definitely can't rely on culture, pop culture, and the messages that I hear from, right to left. So I go to my favorite book. When I bring my Bible to the coffee shop, I used to have, well, not used to have, let me show you this real quick. This Bible, I just made my own cover, right? And so it's this big book and it's this random cover. And I would bring that into a coffee shop, and inevitably, 9 times out of 10, people would ask me, "What are you reading?" And I would simply say, "My favorite book." And then that would intrigue them more. They go, "Oh, what's your favorite book?" I'm like, "Well, if you want to know, I'm reading the Bible. I'm actually in the book of Joshua today." And so I just found that to be like, that just worked for me. And so when I think about, I want my connections, my relationships to be healthy. I want them to be beautiful. I have to have a healthy, beautiful relationship with myself. And the only way I can do that is having a healthy, beautiful relationship with the one who made me. It's like buying a complicated tech machine and not reading the directions and trying to tinker with it and trying to figure it out on your own. And you're like, this is so complicated. When if you just read page 1, it would tell you, you begin here and then you add this and then you add this. So one of my favorite scriptures, Psalms 139, if you don't mind allowing me to share a little bit. And it's a very common scripture. Even if you don't read scripture, you've probably heard this before. Is, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. So that's God saying, you were fearfully and wonderfully made. And that feels good and that sounds good. And actually, if you think about it, that fits well with us. But I love how the Passion Translation shares the Psalms 139. And when I want to be encouraged in my identity, I go to Psalms 139. And, the scripture here, it reads, "You form my innermost being, shaping my delicate inside and my intricate outside, wove them all together in my mother's womb. I thank you, God, for making me so mysteriously complex." Can I get it? It is marvelously breathtaking. It simply amazes me to think about it, how thoroughly you know me. You even formed every bone in my body when you created me in the secret place, carefully, skillfully shaping me from nothing to something. You saw who you created me to be before I became me. So if that doesn't excite you, and if that doesn't be like, okay, I don't know what will. And by the way, there's another scripture, verse 5, just finish with this. You've gone into my future to prepare the way, and in kindness you follow behind me to spare me from the harm of my past. That is something I cling to as well. So yeah, how does my faith make a difference in my life and my relationships? Just that. And I often say, if my sweet friends or people, my sweet community online, and a little app called Instagram, you may have heard of it. Whenever I get a compliment on, "Thank you for sharing your hope, and you encourage me, or you give me hope, or you make me feel good," and it's like, I can connect that back with, I can only give you what I have. And so if I'm going to say, "Oh, thank you, that touched my heart. I appreciate your kind words. I appreciate your compliment." I'm going to have to know, okay, well, the source of that isn't just here. The source is what I'm being filled with, what I'm being fed, and how I'm feeding my own soul. Because we can only give what we have.
How do you feed your own soul? What are some of the practices that you do to do that for yourself?
Yeah. So when we know that the soul is made up of our mind, our will, and our emotions, then it goes back to, yes, rest. Yes, telling yourself the truth. I think truth is so beautiful, has the power to set you free. Ignorance is not bliss. I mean, for the time being, it can feel like it, but there's power in knowledge when you apply the knowledge. And so I feed my mind, my will, and my emotions by being honest, first of all, with my mind, my will, and my emotions. I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of speaking out loud, because for me, there's power in hearing the spoken word. There's power in reading, the written word. I do a lot of journaling. I write in every book I ever read. And so if you read a book after me, you're going to see all my notes in the margin. And so I'm always processing what I feel. And I have to say, in that regard, dancing, I've been a dancer all my life. And that was really my first love. I was tiptoeing around before I could walk. And dancing was a way for me to emote, for me to express what I'm feeling. And in my younger years, before I can even articulate with words what I was feeling, I could dance it and it would get out of me. I could share it with the world in that way. You know, gosh, that's another element to why the journey of pain that I've had to deal with, scoliosis, wearing a back brace for 3 years. I had to quit dancing. I had to quit the love. I had to quit that thing that I felt brought me freedom. And I had to go into a back brace with metal around my neck, into a prison. It literally felt like going from freedom to imprisonment. And that was at 12 years old. But again, God will and can make all things out for good for those who love him and are called to his purpose. So he really helped shape my identity from 12 years old on, because I could have definitely continued down that road. I'm a dancer. This is my identity. Every audition I have to get, otherwise I'm not valuable, but taking that gift away from me for a time being and putting me into this brace, I realized then too, am I valuable even when I can't dance? Am I beautiful even when I can't move? And that was a beginning of being conditioned in my mind. Yes, you are, because it's your birthright and nobody could take that from you. And so dancing, movement, expressing, writing, singing, talking, conversations. If you're out to dinner with me, I always do around the table questions. I love it as my love language. And the other thing is working with a mentor, working with a coach, getting into therapy. All these things I've really been adding to my life since last year, and I love it. And it's been huge. I mean, narrative therapy, even just speaking it out to someone that you trust. And yeah, when it comes to this whole like self-love and body care and self-care, I love it. And that's an element. It's beautiful and we need it. And then go one step deeper. How do you take care of your soul, that thing which lasts forever? And it's more intricate. It's not just an action, although soul care could be a bubble bath. If I'm in there and if I'm meditating, if I'm praying, if I'm processing out loud, soul care. And so I want to water my soul with truth, with encouragement, with love, um, and we also grow in the bad times. I've heard the quote, "Why is the grass always greener on the other side?" Because there's more manure over there. It's like there's more, what over there. But we also grow in the bad times. It's just a matter of, where am I going to set my mind? What questions am I going to ask? Brendan Bouchard and Tony Robbins, they have great insight. I love them. And they both have a quote on questions that I love. As I told you, questions are like one of my love languages. And so Brendan Bouchard says questions are so powerful because they set our intention and they direct our minds. So what's your favorite color?
Depends on the day.
Oh,
Let's go with purple today.
did purple come into mind, or did a collection of colors come into mind before you even spoke it out loud?
100%.
Well, we all know our brain is just this magnificent machine. I've said it now like 48 times in this interview, sorry. But as you can see, I'm just like enamored with it. And the more I learn about it, the more I'm like, there's so much to know. But questions help bring the answer to the forefront of your heart. And Tony Robbins says the quality of your life is directly connected with the quality of the questions that you ask. And when I first heard that, I challenged it like, no, it ain't. But then I thought, oh, yeah, it is. Yes, it is. Instead of asking, all last year, I could have only asked, why me, God? Why did you do this? What did I do wrong? And I said, what can I learn from this? How can I help get out of this wilderness faster? How can I step into healing? Faith without works is dead. So I will do the natural and I will believe you to do the super. So questions really do, they set our intention. So I ask myself, I ask myself a lot of questions out loud. And that's really helpful for me. So if I'm irritated on the freeway, I'm frustrated, I will ask myself, do you really want to show up to this meeting frustrated? The answer is no. Or, Jess, do you really want to go through the rest of this 8 hours today feeling irritated and mad at that person? The answer that jumped out at me is no. So then I'm like, okay, how do I get there? So it's a couple of practical ways that I help water my soul and keep it healthy.
Those are so great and so easy for people to start today. If people are feeling called to faith, called to prayer in some capacity, whatever that looks like and means to them, what are some easy steps and tips that you would offer people in that exploration?
I love that. I love that so much. And I like to remind women, everybody, but women are just my heart to connect with. And my goal, my passion is to see women step into freedom, complete freedom, to see women step into joy, defiant joy, no matter if you're in a winter or if you're in a spring. And so I like to remind women, we all, especially entrepreneurs, you have faith. You are a woman of faith. Faith is simply believing in something that you don't see yet. So to be an entrepreneur, it takes a lot of faith. And actually, to be a healthy human being, it takes a lot of faith. The question is, where am I putting my faith? Who am I putting it in? And when we can ask, again, when we can ask ourselves that question, the answer comes up. And a lot of times it might lead you to, gosh, I'm putting my faith in myself. And then is that a safe place to put all your faith in yourself? You, they don't. You know the thoughts that you think, the emotions that you deal with. And so for me, I have to ask myself that too. And I only feel confident putting in my faith into something that will never change. And so I want to answer this question authentically. And I also, part of me is like, oh my gosh, call me and I'll tell you all about Jesus, you know? um, but starting with that question, do I believe I'm a woman of faith? For men watching, do I believe I'm a man of faith? Okay, yes, yes. Where is my faith? Where am I putting that faith? Where am I planting that faith? What soil am I planting it in? And if it leads back to you, again, you can ask, is that where I want to put my faith? If it's in an author or a thought leader or somebody who has passed, or, then ask yourself, is that the right place for me to be putting and planting and growing my faith in? And so just know that wherever you are and whatever you believe, there was a plan and a design for your life, and you're intricately, perfectly, and wonderfully made. You're mysteriously complex. Don't beat yourself up about it. You're made that way. And there's a God who loves you. And there's a God who is just waiting for you to turn around and say, are you real? Then prove it. So taking the time, creating that margin, asking the questions, and then not being afraid to really look at each answer. If I could tell one little quick story, one of my dear friends, our relationship has just grown to like, we're soul sisters now. We met on a shoot, and she doesn't mind if I tell her name. Hi, Jess. She is an incredible jewelry designer, and I got booked to do her hair and makeup for her lookbooks. And so we worked really well together. We just created beautiful content together. And so she kept booking me. And then one day, probably a year into knowing her, we were on a shoot, and she was sitting down. I was standing up. I was like busy bee. And she asked me a question. She goes, Jess, how are you the person you are? I'm on this exploration of finding out who God is. And there's so many options, and there's so much out there. And I really want to know, who is God? Who would you say God is? Like, she asked me this beautiful question, and she goes, how are you the way you are, and what do you believe? And I thought, oh, okay. Well, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. And so I shared with her, first of all, I am honored just to be in your presence, someone who is seeking truth in that way, somebody who is seeking, who is God? There's so many options in this world, but I want the I want the real deal. I want the authentic. And so I honored her and encouraged her. I'm like, wow, so many people go through life, move through life without ever asking that question. And so I love you for that. I love you for wanting to know. And really for me, one of the most important questions that I have asked and that I think all people should ask, and again, bear with me if whatever you believe, I do think it's a question that all people should ask, is who do you say Jesus is? Because if he's claiming to be the Messiah, God, God the Father, and he claimed to come down to earth to bridge that gap, to provide a way for us to reach up and grab onto heaven, really. And so he, and I use the word claim because let's just use that word claim right now. He claimed to be the Messiah, and he was a good person, and he did miracles, and he loved people, and he was moved by compassion. And so one of the most important questions to check off your list, if you're on this exploration of finding out who is God, you have to ask yourself, well, who do I think Jesus is? Because he even says that, while he walked this earth, who do you say I am? So I shared that with Jess, and I go, honestly, I love you and support you, and I will be cheering you on, whatever you choose to believe. But you have to be honest with yourself in answering that question. I really think that's one of the most important questions you can ask. And so recently, I got this big package in the mail, and it's this big, hearty, heavy box. And I didn't know who it was from. And I opened it, and they're beautiful books. Each book of the Bible done in a magazine format. The company is called Alabaster, I believe. And I was sent 12 thick magazine books of the Bible. Again, my favorite book. And I'm like, oh, what? I go, who sent this to me? And Jess, my friend who I was telling you about, she texted me and she's like, I thought it was only fair that because you introduced me to Jesus, that I send you a little bit of Jesus in the mail today. And so I'm like, oh my God,
So cute.
her own journey. Like she went there, but I really believe it's just one question that we all have to ask on
I
the,
think, yeah, I think that's such a great question too, to what you were saying earlier. It can be a question that helps you tie to the uniqueness of how you want to live out your gifts in the earth, and how you want that to touch yourself and others. It's so beautiful.
can I
Yeah.
thing. I mean, authenticity. I want that for you. I want that for me. It's my goal. And a lot of people that I talk to are okay with being uncertain about faith. But I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. And so I have found in all the hundreds of women that I coach and the women that I talk to all around the world in my work and in my coaching, I have found that, in order to be fully authentic, you have to know what you believe 100%. Don't buy the lie that I don't need to know. That's okay. Just be good to your soul. Be good to yourself. Just take the time to find out, what do I believe and why, and then believe it 100%. So I just want to encourage you with that.
So cool. Thank you for sharing what you believe and bringing some light and understanding to this topic, and how you show and live that every day. Because I think we learn what is right for us in other people sharing their story, and us being open to hearing other people's story and what it means to them and their interpretation and perception of the world. So thank you for being you and for sharing that with so many people. How can people reach out to you and connect with you if they're interested in learning more, and just connecting with you as a human on this earth?
I would love to connect with you. So you can email me at hello@Jessica Shakir Beauty. And you can find me on Instagram at Jessica Shakir Beauty. And it's Shakira without the A at the end. And my website is jessicashakirbeauty.com. So you can
Awesome.
just find me there.
So perfect. And I know you also have a beauty assessment that they can go check out as well for free and get that. And just explain quickly, what is the assessment and what can they expect from that?
Yeah, so it's a 2-page beauty authenticity assessment, and it's to give you clarity, and it's to give you something on paper to look at. And I have 10 areas of your life where, when we apply authentic beauty to the areas, starting with the mind, your talent, your voice, your weighting, your pain, your relationships, your body, your faith, your life, your appearance, those 10 areas, then we can create the life that we love, right? And so we can't manage anything that we first can't measure. So this is just a tool for you to be able to measure, where am I at today? This is my starting point. Give yourself grace, don't beat yourself up. And because you're doing the assessment, you're here right now in Vanessa's Summit, you have a growth mindset. I know that because you're here. So just be encouraged that where you are now, as you go through the assessment that I have for you as my free gift, it's your starting point. And then flip the script to not, oh, I have to do so much, I'm so far behind. Feeling behind is a choice. Shanda, our business coach, she always does that. And flip the script and say, wow, look what I get to do. I get to become the woman of my dreams. I get to live a life that I love. And so the beauty authenticity assessment is to help you live a beautiful and authentic life.
So awesome. We truly wish that for all of you. And thank you for taking the time to listen to this conversation. Jessica, thank you again for being here and taking the time to chat with our community and share your story. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you for listening. Thank you for being you and for being on this earth. Remember, which Jessica told us so well today, is that you are so worthy regardless of what you create and your action and what you accomplish. You are amazing just for being you. So I encourage you to dive deeper into that journey as you listen to this conversation, as you move day to day from here. So sending you so much love and good vibes to you, the listener, and Jessica for being here today. Thank you. We'll chat with you soon. Bye.